New York Mets trade rumors are escalating. Mitch Keller's name has been hot for a while, and Met fans like him because he'll bulk up our rotation and overall pitching, but they're skeptical of the cost associated with the Pirate. That's exactly what we're going to go over today. Mitch Keller, the stats, everything about him, and what the insiders are saying, and of course, what it would cost to actually go out and acquire him. So stay tuned only on Mets Digest for all the Mitch Keller details. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk everything Mitch Keller, but first, we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.2% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And a quick note on Mitch Keller, his name is hot in terms of trade deadlines, but it's more from the media. There isn't actually that much from insiders. There's only a couple of insiders who are talking about Mitch Keller going to the Mets, but there's plenty from the media, and that's exactly what we're going to hop into right now. Starting it off with RJ Anderson of CBS Sports, who confirms that Keller has been linked to the Mets. He says, quote, "One name in particular seems popular among contenders. Pittsburgh Pirates right-hander Mitch Keller, who has been linked to the New York Yankees, New York Mets, and Chicago Cubs, amongst other teams." Additionally, the Mets are showing interest in him per the SNY news desk. They said, quote, "The Mets will certainly be in the market for starting pitching ahead of the trade deadline." One arm they are showing interest in is Pirates right-hander Mitch Keller. According to Noah Hiles of the Pittsburgh Post, adding a reliable inning eater like Keller would be a huge boost for this Mets rotation, which has struggled to work deep into games this year. So now that we know that there's interest there, let's talk possible deals. And this is going to get interesting. We're starting it off with a deal that just brings in Mitch Keller, solely Keller, because we have another deal coming forward that would bring Keller and another one of his teammates over to Flushing. And this one alone involves 3 players and 3 guys that were at one point top 30 prospects. So, obviously, the Mets in this deal would receive Mitch Keller, but Pittsburgh in this deal would get 3 guys. First baseman / outfielder Ryan Clifford, who is the Mets' number 7 prospect. Recall, he was part of the Justin Verlander deal back in 2023. He came over in exchange for an aging and a contract expiring Justin Verlander. Shortstop Elian Pena, who is the Mets' 11 prospect, and shortstop Colin Hoke, who is not in the Mets' top 30 right now, according to MLB Pipeline, but I would assume it's number 31 because he was formerly number 30 before there was a couple of flips and they added one prospect to the top 30, obviously putting Houck out of the top 30, but still, 3 guys that were at one point top 30, basically guaranteed top 35 prospects, 3 of them for Mitch Keller. When we look at the stats, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it because the price is pretty high for Mitch Keller, and it's even higher when you pair O'Neill Cruz into the mix. To get Cruz and Keller, the Mets would have to give up, and again, this is just a mock trade, but the Mets would be giving up their third baseman / DH, more their DH right now, in Mark Vientos, one of the 4 young infielders, Luis Angel Acuna, Vientos, Brett Baty, Ronnie Mauricio. Right-handed pitcher Blade Tidwell, the Mets' 10th prospect, who has spent some time in the majors. He's had a couple of spot starts. Outfielder Drew Gilbert, who is the 12th prospect in the Mets system, the other guy, not Clifford, that came over in that Verlander deal, and left-handed pitcher Jonathan Santucci, who is the number 13 prospect in the Mets system. So with that, let's turn it back to the insiders. We're going to discuss pros and cons with Keller from the experts. Starting it off with Anderson again. He's going to give 3 reasons why Keller is, quote, a popular trade candidate. Starting with number 1, his track record. Anderson says, quote, "Keller established himself as a reliable workhorse even prior to this year. Indeed, he started at least 29 games in each of the past 3 seasons, all the while compiling an ERA plus between 100 and 106 each year. Keep in mind, an ERA plus of 100 is considered league average, just like OPS plus. Here's where Keller ranks since 2022 in some important categories among the 135 pitchers with more than 300 innings thrown during that time period, basically qualified pitchers. Innings pitched, he is 11th out of 300. That is really, really good. Games started, 8th. So you're going to get length out of him. You're going to get a lot of starts. He barely gets hurt. ERA plus 65th means he's right in the middle in terms of ERA. He's a middle-of-the-road pitcher, at least amongst these qualifiers. K per 9, he's 72nd. And strikeout to walk rate, he's 60th. So a middle-of-the-road pitcher, but he throws a lot of innings and he pitches a lot and doesn't really get hurt. Those marks may not seem overly impressive on their own, but look around the league and you'll find plenty of good teams who would love to add a demonstrably league average arm to their playoff rotation, and that's without considering the possibility that there's more chicken left on the bone. Well, what's that chicken? The number 2 thing that Anderson notes, and that is untapped upside. He says, quote, "It may sound silly to throw out words like upside and potential with a pitcher who is 8 months away from celebrating his 30th birthday, but the reality is that many big league front offices care less about what a player has done or is doing right now and more about what they can do heading forward." Keller has long intrigued pitching nerds because of his motor preferences. He's a supinator, a fancy way of saying that he tends to pitch around the ball rather than through it. In turn, he's able to benefit from seam effects, think unexpected movement, and create more enticing breaking ball shapes with better velocity than his pronator counterparts, those who pitch through the ball. This isn't just theory, it's reality. Keller's arsenal already includes 3 breaking balls, a curve, a traditional slider, and a sweeper, as well as 2 fastballs, a 4-seamer and a sinker, and a changeup. It's wholly plausible that other teams see tweaks to be made with his arsenal, or at least his sequencing, that could unlock better production. And when you talk Jeremy Hefner, that's why I included him in the intro video. Hefner has been known to get pitchers into the Met pitching lab, and despite the walks being a problem with New York, he has done a wonderful job turning okay and what I would consider mediocre pitchers into guys that are really sound pitchers and even elite pitchers. Think Frankie Montas, who has been okay, Luis Severino last year, Sean Manaea, who came out of nowhere and now is an ace potential guy. That's exactly what you get with Jeremy Hefner as your pitching coach, and hopefully if the Mets do bring Keller over, they can get exactly that with Mitch Keller. Bear in mind, Kansas City Royals righty Seth Lugo had a similarly deep arsenal, and he couldn't establish himself as a legitimate big league starter until his age 33 season, post his days with the Mets. Sometimes patience is a necessity, not a virtue. So that's solid. You got untapped upside, you got his track record, and according to Anderson, you got a great contract. He says, quote, "You can't acknowledge a player's trade value without discussing their contractual status. It's an absolute bargain relative to what he would likely receive on the open market. To wit, here is Keller in comparison to some free agent pitchers who signed multi-year packs last offseason. One of them is, in fact, going to be a Met pitcher, and that is Frankie Montas. Now, as you can see on your screen, you got the length of the contract, which is 3 years for everyone with the exception of Montas, who signed a 2-year deal with the Mets prior to this season, back in the 2024 offseason. The average annual value, meaning how much money per year on average do they make, the amount of innings that they've thrown, and their WAR. Again, WAR, the higher it is, the better you are as a player. And where does Keller live? He is better than everyone in all of these categories, and his contract is the most friendly besides Frankie Montas. He's by far got the best WAR by over 3. He's got the most innings pitched by nearly 100, and he's costing you less money than Yusei Kikuchi, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Frankie Montas. I've mentioned these guys. The bottom 3 guys I mentioned, and David Stearns and Jeremy Hefner were those guys. They turned them around, all 3 of them. So I think that Stearns and Hefner can do exactly this with Mitch Keller. That is definitely a promising thing. And of course, the contract itself. This is a very favorable contract. You're only in 2025. That second row down at the bottom half of your screen right now, this screenshot, is where we are right now. You're still under control with him for 26, 27, and 28. Mitch Keller does not become a free agent until 2029. And given the current pitching market, you're only owing him about $15 million a year. Again, that's pennies for Uncle Steve, who is willing to spend all of it. And Steve Cohen, our owner, I don't mind it whatsoever. The contract is definitely favorable. It's just, again, the only problem with him is the cost, which we'll get to in just a second. But first, we're turning it back to SNY. It's going to be Anthony McCarron who's going to first discuss the pros on Keller. And there are 2 parts to this. I'll give you a fair warning. So the pros are going to very much so outweigh the cons, at least in McCarron's perspective. He goes on to say, quote, "If these were still the days when a pitcher's win-loss record was one of his most meaningful stats, Keller's 3-10 mark, now 4-10, even for the 39-61 Pirates, which I think has gotten even worse as we've progressed, might offer pause. Thankfully, we have moved beyond that Jurassic age of pitching and are more enlightened. Keller has been terrific this season, despite that record. The Pirates have scored a total of 37 runs in the 17 games that Keller has either lost or recorded a no decision. He's got a 3.48 ERA, which has been updated since, which would be his career best over a full season, and is sporting career best in numbers such as WHIP, homers per 9, and walks per 9 too. His strikeout percentage would be his lowest for a full year, but whatever, I don't care. Go get outs. I don't mind that whatsoever. Get outs, don't give up runs. That's your job as a pitcher. You don't have to strike everyone out. It seems to be working. Plus, he's proven he can get Ks. His 210 strikeouts in 2023 established a record for a Pittsburgh righty, though it seems as a foregone conclusion that Paul Skeens will one day shatter that mark. That's probably pretty obvious. Skeens is absolutely incredible. Keller's 3 most used pitches are a 94-ish mile-an-hour four-seamer, a low 80 sweeper, and an 87 mile-an-hour slider. He also uses a sinker, and StatCast gives him credit for the 10th best fastball run value, ahead of even Jacob deGrom. Keller's sweeper is tied for 5th best by the same metric. Opponents have a just 181 batting average on this sweeper. To continue with all of the pros, the Mets, you might have heard, are having trouble getting length out of their starters. Think Clay Holmes, who can't work his way into the 6th, and really every starter in this rotation that is not named David Peterson. Keller has pitched into at least the 6th innings in 13 consecutive starts, and he's gotten at least 18 outs in 11 of those over his last 4 starts. He has a 1.44 ERA. For whatever it's worth, he's looked great against the Mets too, notching a 2.19 ERA over 2 starts. Juan Soto and Brett Baty have homered off him, but Met hitters batted just .213 against him with a 628 OPS. And there's cost certainty, which club number crunchers will appreciate. Keller is signed for 3 more seasons after this one. We took a look at that earlier, for a total of just $55.7 million. Hold that up against whatever he'd make on the free agent market, more obviously, and he's even more attractive. That contract is definitely favorable, especially in the given pitching market. Now, McCarron does have to talk his cons, and he makes a joke first saying, there are none. We kid, of course. As mentioned, he's not striking out batters at the same rate. Since 2021, only 12 pitchers have made more starts than Keller, and only 15 have thrown more innings. So that's a good thing. That means he's throwing a lot of innings. I don't even think that's a con. If you want to ding him for wear and tear, well, every pitcher cures it. Yeah, I get it, but he has proved on multiple occasions he can be that guy that throws a ton of innings, that goes deep into games. I don't really care if there's wear and tear on his arm. There's wear and tear on literally every single major league pitcher's arms, and that includes the minor leagues, especially with how travel ball, little league, high school, and college ball works nowadays. I'm not concerned with that whatsoever. And the strikeouts, like I said earlier, they don't matter. I just want outs. I don't need them to be strikeouts. I really don't care. We say that's more representative of his durability than anything. Cost, of course, could be a con, just because he's so good and so controllable. We saw that in the mock trades. The Pirates will be right to ask for the moon and stars. A Jet Williams, one of the Mets' top prospects, number 1 right now, too, and much more young talent beyond Williams. Some might say the Mets should have prospect capital to deal for a hitter instead. Whatever happens, if they're in on Keller, they'd better be prepared for a prospect-biting battle, especially with the Yankees and Cubs among the teams connected to the righty via media reports. So, overall, what is McCarron's verdict? Well, he says, quote, if the Mets really believe this current team has a chance to be special, despite how ordinary and worse they've looked recently, they've looked better of late. This was, I believe, before the 7-game win streak. This is the kind of deal they should make. Keller makes them better now and later, and his contract is reasonable for a durable starter. Could the Mets help sort their current third base situation by using one of those young big leaguers as part of a package to pry Keller from Pittsburgh? We saw that in the deal with Mark Vientos being shipped over for Cruz and Keller. The cost will hurt, but the Mets could use some rotation certainty, especially after all the injuries their starters have endured this season. So, overall, the experts really, really like him. They see a lot of positives, but the stats are going to have to speak for themselves, as we are going to turn it now to some statistics on both Keller and O'Neal Cruz, because we saw O'Neal Cruz rumored in one of these. Starting it off with Keller, he's having a career season because he's a 4.45 career ERA pitcher. He's up to a 3.69 right now, which as a career best really honestly concerns me a good amount. A 120 whip is okay, exactly 100 strikeouts and 127 innings, so way less than a 9 strikeout per 9. Not terrible. I would say it's around 7.5 if I had to do some quick math. The wins aren't there, but it's the Pirates, so you can't really look at wins because they don't win a lot as a ball club. They're not going to score Keller a lot of runs. Again, the big thing about him is his contract. He's got a very favorable contract, and he pitches a lot of innings. Here are the advanced metrics on him. As you can see, that fastball is absolutely incredible, but his off speed is not as great. Overall, he's a very, very good pitcher. Doesn't walk a lot of guys, misses the barrel a good amount, doesn't get a ton of Ks like we see, and doesn't get a lot of whiffs, but I don't really care as long as he's missing barrels and as long as he's producing outs. That's all I care about as a pitcher, and he's also a pretty good ground ball pitcher, getting about 45% ground balls, and we've seen with David Peterson time and time again how important ground balls are as a pitcher. So with this, let's turn it over to Oneil Cruz, who is having one of the worst seasons of his career. He has hit 250 or better in every single season, and he's on a decline this year, but he still has 17 homers and 44 RBIs, as well as 34 stolen bases, and he's young as well, with absolutely insane off-the-charts advanced metrics. So that is the prospect outlook there. Not prospect outlook, the player outlook on Oneil Cruz. He's not a prospect anymore. He has been a hyped up prospect, though. I mean, look how fast he is. Great fielding and overall a very, very solid, powerful bat. But I think the package has to be right. In summary, if you do this kind of a deal, it's going to be a blockbuster trade. And I don't know if I'm willing to pull the gun on all of these guys right now. For Cruz, who's not having the best year, and Keller, who's just really an inning eater overall with a favorable contract. Even a deal like this, I don't know how I feel about it overall. I like Keller a lot. I like Cruz a lot, but I don't know if the packages are going to be right. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Personally, I like Mitch Keller and Oneil Cruz a lot, especially with Cruz's advanced metrics. Super fast guy with a lot of power. Keller overall eats up a lot of innings at not the worst ERA that you've seen. Really a 3.5 ERA and below is very, very good, and a 4 below is kind of expected. He's an average pitcher in terms of the runs and everything like that, but he's going to eat innings and save the bullpen, which is why he would be appealing, especially because he's under contract through 2028. But let me know if you disagree. Personally, when I'm looking at those two mock trades that we saw, I wouldn't do either of them. I think the price has to be right to go out and get Keller or Oneil Cruz, or a combination of both. So those two trades for me, no, I think you're giving up too much. But if you can give up a little bit less, maybe I'd pull the trigger and go get Mitch Keller. I like who he is. I like Oneil Cruz as who he is, but the package for me is just a little bit too much. But again, let me know if you disagree. Stay tuned on Mets Digest. Adam and I are talking the trade deadline. Plenty to go over in terms of the rumors, and hopefully David Stearns pulls the trigger sooner rather than later. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this one. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.